Welcome to this week's episode of the Jewish Diaspora Report. On this episode, we're going to discuss why I'm thinking of making Aliyah to Israel, the history of the MS St. Louis in 1939, and the British blockade of Eretz Israel in 1940. Let's get started. It is with deep sadness that I'm here again this week talking about the issues in the Ukraine. One of the major developments that has happened this past week is that the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett had gone to Russia to try and broker some type of deal. There's some speculation on why he went. Was it that he maybe can play a role between the West and Russia, being that they sort of straddle that line? Or maybe is it because the Jews of Ukraine are facing a little bit of a challenge right now? And it has been always the Israelis' policy to take care of Jews and provide protection for Jews all over the world. After Bennett returned to Israel from Moscow, he gave an interview where he discussed the fact that they're expecting a large influx of refugees from the Ukraine. As many of you might know, the Israelis have a very unique part of their constitution that gives every Jewish person the right to citizenship. In a law passed July 5th, 1950, the Israeli government gave the right to Aliyah, or making immigration available to all Jewish people across the world. The goal of this law, of course, was to grant protection and citizenship to any Jews across the world who might be facing persecution, to avoid the issues of the Holocaust when Jews had nowhere else to go. A few times in my life, I've considered the idea of making Aliyah to Israel. Most of my previous reasons for considering Aliyah was just simply a love of the country. I really didn't have much reasoning behind it, but now things have definitely changed. Seeing the current situation in the Ukraine and Prime Minister Bennett having to go to Ukraine to try and protect Jews, it makes me wonder, is it too late by the time war starts? Even though we are much more safe in North America and probably are not going to be experiencing pogroms and war that are going to affect the Jewish community here, I found myself wondering, can Jews really ever be safe around the world? Maybe it would make sense for me to consider getting an Israeli passport to have that really quick access, the access that the Ukrainians right now probably wish they had. During a war, it's obviously very difficult. I've heard a rabbi saying in the Ukraine that some people would like to make Aliyah to Israel, but to get to the Israeli consulate within Ukraine during a war is very difficult and almost impossible to get to an airport. I think back to a time in history like in Germany in the 1930s when we had very assimilated Jews living within Germany. The culture was high. Everyone expected these are the top of the line intellectuals. There's no way anything bad could happen here. We could rise above the old hates of the past. And then unfortunately, many German Jews were caught off guard by the fact that anti-Semitism had risen to the point of the Holocaust. In fact, many Jewish people around that time and after were searching for a place like Israel that hadn't existed yet to find protection and safety. I wonder, am I sitting here like one of the German Jews in the 1930s thinking, oh, well, I'm in a safe country. I'm an assimilated Jew and I'm accepted here and therefore I should be fine? Am I getting too comfortable in assuming that I'm safe and protected, unlike the Ukrainians, not realizing that maybe one day some pogroms will rise up or people will speak out against Jews or we see the rise of anti-Semitism all over the world, that maybe I will one day need to flee to a safe place like Israel? And if that's the case, should I not sort of get a head start and get my Israeli citizenship now for the day that I might need to flee for safety? Or should I find myself like the Ukrainians stuck in this unfortunate situation where they have a free and safe place to go, but just can't get there? After this break, we're going to talk about the history and let the history be our guide for what we should do in these circumstances. Should I make Aliyah to Israel? Should I feel safe in my home country? Will there be a place I can go in case of emergency? We'll find out right after this.